Who is a Muslimah? What makes her unique? Where is her story? I'm here to shed light on voices of powerful Muslim women who are a mystery to the media. My name is Noor Hewaidi and you're listening to Muslimah Demystified. Okay, so today we have a young, fresh voice joining us. She is a social activist well known amongst Vancouver's youth, and she shares my name. Welcome to my podcast, Noor.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No worries. So why don't you
and
tell...
we have the same spelling.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so Noor is the founder of Speak Up Together, which is an initiative that brings awareness to issues of hate crime in Canada. So what inspired you to start this, Noor?
Well, it all started with my kind of own personal experience with hate crime and discrimination.
Okay.
It led back to December 4th, 2017, when it was around 9:57 p.m. when I boarded the Canada Line SkyTrain here in Vancouver, making my way back home when I sat a few seats away from some guy, and the moment I sat down, I had my earphones in talking to a friend on the phone. He got up and I could hear mumbling, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. It wasn't until this man stood in front of me and had this really aggressive look on his face that I decided to pull my earphone out, and having him in Arabic tell me that he was going to kill me and kill all Muslims. He began to use a lot of profanity in Arabic and was swearing at me and telling me to go back to my country, and having to look at the passengers and see what, they were maybe thinking about this man yelling at this woman. There was really no reaction, and I was assuming at that point maybe it's because he was speaking a different language that they couldn't understand. But after maybe 10 seconds of him continuously swearing at me, he did get a lot closer on me, and that's when in Arabic he told me to choke on it, and that's when he tried to grab my head and force it against his crotch. I immediately backed up. So at that point, you could know that although you didn't understand what he was saying, this man was trying to get physical to someone who literally looked defenseless. And then after a few moments of that, he did slap me across the face. And it wasn't until I got physically hit did one man all the way at the other side of the SkyTrain run over, shove him away from me, and stand in front of me until the attacker got off the train. And having that experience happen to me personally, there was a lot of questions in my mind at that very moment is, why did everyone just watch that happen? Why was there no reaction at all? And, why would this man just do this and assume because I wear the hijab that I am a threat? And that all kind of leads back on the education aspect of society, and the biased perspectives we have towards one another, and the way that Western media portrays us Muslims or portrays other minorities. I think the reason why we have this aggression and this hate towards one another is because we think we know who they are. Absolutely. And I think that's what led to the man to do what he did for me. And I think that's what led to those people, the bystanders, to not do anything, because what were they, what were they aware of to do? Were they taught what to do when witnessing such a situation? Yeah. As of myself, I really couldn't do much. There was not much that I can do in that moment because my body was not reacting. And
I can imagine that's a very, scary, humiliating, hurtful situation. And I'm very sorry that you went through that. And I'm so proud of you that you took a situation like that and made an initiative out of it and made something positive out of it and shared your story. I mean, I'm all the way in Scotland and your story reached me here. And yeah,
it was something that I really believed that I had to share, because of that one man who stood for me, and I was able to take my phone out and capture quick 3 photos of the attacker. And the next day, I decided that I wanted to speak up about that because, my life wasn't taken. I thank God that I was alive and that it only reached to that extent, although it wasn't the best extent, but it was only that. See, other people, their lives are taken immediately when something like that happens, and so they don't have a choice to decide if they want to speak up about what happened or not.
And
I believe that I had a right to do that, and I had that platform, that I had to speak, that I had that responsibility to do so.
And it's happened in Canada as well. I mean, people have this vision of Canada as a very tolerant, accepting country, which to many extent it is, and I'm very grateful for that. But it's also a place where there is a lot of racism, there is a lot of discrimination. An extreme example is the Quebec shooting of 5 innocent people in a mosque last year, and then there's microaggressions constantly, and then there's cases like this of people who are visibly Muslim, like yourself, a young woman who wears a hijab, being attacked simply for being who they are. So you touched upon this earlier. How do you encourage people to speak up in situations like this?
So I can't really say how would I want to encourage others. I use that myself by sharing my story.
Mm-hmm.
But a way that I encourage myself, which I suggest not many people to do so, but after having my story going out there and the attention that it had, I had over like 50,000 messages from people across the world with such positive energy and vibes, and it was amazing.
That's
However,
profound.
there was a lot, like 25,000 messages of very negative comments, and I forced myself to read every single one of those comments. And for me, that was a daily reminder of why I had to put my story out there. Because, once again, as you said, people assume that Canada, racism doesn't exist in Canada. And it may not seem like it is compared to other countries, surrounding us, but it is there. It really definitely is. And for me to encourage others is by sharing my story and doing my absolute best to remind them that speaking up, it's not going to be easy. You will have backlash. You will have hundreds of people tell you, thousands of people tell you that your story is not true, that it's invalid, that you should have done this and that you should have done that, and learn to protect yourself, or why were you not with the man at this moment? But at the same time,
blaming the victim, essentially.
Hundreds and thousands of more messages telling you you kicked ass and thank you for sharing your story, and you are going to have thousands of messages of people sharing their personal stories with you to thank you for having the courage to do so. And I think that's the reminder of it, is that whatever decision you decide to make, there will be the consequences, but you really have to decide on what will be worth it in the end of it.
And I think that's what's great about Speak Up Together. It's a space for people to share their stories and to connect through these stories, which is so important. I mean, it's an important form of dialogue and also an important form of resistance. For people listening, if you do, get into situations where you witness something like that, speaking up doesn't necessarily mean, facing the person doing the harassment. It can be as simple as sitting with the victim, consoling them, having that presence with them. Calling for help, and if the situation permits and it's a safe environment, definitely stand up against the person doing the harassment. But there's so many ways to protect each other, so please don't be a bystander and definitely speak up. So you went to a high school, obviously, in Canada as a hijabi, like many young Canadian Muslimas do. So how was your experience with that? Because I actually wore hijab after high school, so I'm curious to know your insight.
I know a lot of people who went to high school who wore hijab had a perfectly normal life, which is awesome. And knowing who I am and the kind of things that happened in my life, high school was the worst experience of my life. And I'm actually very blessed that I'm out of it. And I never wish to go back in a way where I had to be forced to be in those hallways every day.
Why is that? I'm sorry to hear that.
I felt like in high school, people were aware that racism was happening, but they didn't realize that themselves were doing it in a way. As you said, there's a lot of microaggression. There's a lot of more of like that smaller aspect of racism. When we think of racism, we think it as being, some alt-right guy who's holding like a huge, supporting the Nazi kind of thing. I think that's what people assume right away. That's what it is. But being in high school and kind of going through that and understanding, it was as little as having me and some of my hijabi friends, the other Muslim women who were the hijab, having a picture of us being taken when we're in a group and having someone caption it like "connected terrorists" with a bunch of lines connecting us together. Or having someone tag my name at Noor with like this Bluetooth speaker of ISIS background noises of explosions and bombs happening. That was happening so much. In addition to it was horrible. There was no support. was always like it was a joke. Don't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I think that's actually a very scary form of racism as well. It makes it harder to identify and therefore harder to solve because you see it every day, but you don't know it as racism. So I think that it's important that you brought that up. How did you navigate that experience? As you said, I know many people that are hijabi and have very positive experiences in schools. I certainly did in university, but I know other girls and women that do wear the hijab also face backlash in Western society. So how did you navigate that experience?
It was very challenging. I think that because, there were so many of us in my high school. Like, there was many hijabi women in there.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime something happened, it was like, let it go. Don't cause drama. Don't make a scene. And I realized that with a lot of them. There was many issues, believe me. And there was even a point of my dad trying to reach out to the fathers of some of the Muslim girls in order to kind of go together to the school board and discuss how it's been having an impact on all of us. And them denying it, saying we don't want to get involved. We don't want to bring our daughters involved in this drama.
Yeah.
And that's what really got me going, was the fact that this was happening and they wanted to stay quiet about it. And for me in high school, I couldn't stand it. I hated the fact that they didn't want to speak up about it because they didn't want to, seem like they were just like angry. They wanted to fit in. They had their own reasons. And whatever it was, I hope it was for the best reason. And it wasn't just because they didn't want to create attention to themselves. So that's what even led me to sharing my own story publicly about the attack, was because I know that in high school when something happened and they all stayed quiet, it ate me alive and I hated it and I felt so disrespected and I wasn't going to allow myself to disrespect myself like that again. Never would. So for me, the way that I got past that was just to remind myself that if they're not going to say something, I will. Like, I have to do something because I'm not going to follow their footsteps and be quiet about it and act like everything's okay when it's really not.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of bravery to open yourself and to be vulnerable and to share your story, because stories are, possibly one of the most vulnerable parts about us. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Last week, Noor, you were invited to the City of Vancouver Youth Forum, as I saw on your Speak Up Together page, as a keynote speaker, and this was on the International Day for the Elimination of Racism. So what message did you want to send to Vancouver through your speech?
Well, I wanted to share my story first of all, and my message was to show people that they're not alone. Especially when racism happens. I think that they think that because I am Muslim, I'm only there to talk about Islamophobia. But there's so much more from that. And it is a way for me to connect with others. But my main message in the end of it was that there is more that we can do than we think we can. There's so many more options that we can do to get involved and to be aware than we think, we know and that we are. And that's especially what I like to do when I talk. Even having my talks and being in many events before, it was like me sharing my story, and it was always really traumatizing, and I would get emotional and I would be upset. And I felt like I didn't want to be that face with, when someone thinks like a victim, and that made me seem weak. And so the way that I started speaking was adding humor to it, bringing my own personality into it, using that to gain a platform in the best of ability.
That's amazing.
And to be aware. So my message for all those that were there at the event were, there's more that you can do than you think. And I think teaching them and allowing them to understand that there's more than that and giving them the options of just a few of hundreds can really make a difference.
And for our listeners today, what is one thing that they can do to learn about others and to be more acceptant?
One thing I would say to them is, you have all these walls around you, you have these borders, and you don't even realize it. It's there. It's in your head. It's in your heart. It's around you physically. Bring it down. No matter what you think you know about someone or a group or a religion or a race, take it down for a moment and introduce yourself to a new person every single day. I challenge everyone that every single day that they are still in this world and still living and still doing what they're doing, to communicate with one new person and to listen. Just listen. Don't even try to argue back. Don't try to say anything back. Just listen. And I think from that, we will see that we have a lot more similarities than differences. Of course, not everyone you're going to meet is going to be a ray of sunshine and everything. But there's reasons to why people act the way they do. And I think it's very important for us to keep an open mind on that and to understand that they may have a bad perspective on, like, for example, me, because they were raised a certain way or they've experienced something in a certain way that made them believe that I am an enemy. Mm-hmm. And keeping that in mind, I always do my best to be the best person that I can possibly be to everyone else. And I encourage others to do the same as well. Be open. Listen, hear their story, share your story, and just see how much more similarities you have.
Yep, be open.
Honestly, it's an amazing feeling.
It really is. And to look for similarities with others and to also acknowledge difference and be okay with difference and to celebrate difference, because that's what makes the world so interesting. And we invest so much energy in viewing difference in such a negative way and using it to make gaps between us, when really diversity can be a wonderful thing. That's a great message. Thank you for that.
No worries, thank you for that as well.
You're very welcome. So I know that you care very much about issues of social justice in terms of racism, in terms of speaking up. What do you plan to do with that in the future?
Honestly, Noor, I'm going to let you know that it used to be like I had my whole entire life planned. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I liked to do. And I told myself that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life in certain ways.
And what was that?
A lawyer, becoming a journalist, getting involved in government. Who knows? But then I also learned that within a minute, your whole life can change. Simply by a slap in the face. Mm-hmm. And I think that for me made me realize that to look so far ahead in the future and try to think of what I want to do, I can't say. And I won't say. Because life has its own path for me and its own journey. And so I take it day by day. And so for me, my every single day goal, my every single day that I wake up and I'm still here in this world goal is to treat people the way that I want to be treated, spread my message, hear others' messages, support one another, and see how the world takes me from there. And I think the more opportunities I get to speak, that I get to share my story, are more opportunities to meet people who have other opportunities for me. And I think it's just like a cycle like that. It is. So to say what life has in store for me, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
I'm glad, and I'm excited for you as well. I know there's great things in store. I mean, with life, it's a lot of the times it isn't about what happens, but it's about how you respond to it. And I think you responded in, the most inspiring way there is, which is
I appreciate that.
To combat hate with positivity and love and, having faith in others to take care of your story and to listen to it, even in the face of people that, that don't care or that disrespect your voice. You continue to use it. Why do you think it's important for Muslim women to be part of social change or to be symbols of change?
Because we're badass. We have a lot of stories in us. We have a lot of energy in us. And the world hasn't fully seen that yet. And so meeting, for example, you and meeting so many other women, mm-hmm. Growing up, I was always thought that we were supposed to act one certain way and be one certain way. And I hated it because I felt like I could be so much more. And I thought that if I be something more, it's not considered well.
Yeah.
And then growing up and being surrounded with much more women who are so kick-ass, I realized that I want to be kick-ass as well.
And you
are. I think it's super important for us Muslim women to get out there and put ourselves out there, is because we have a lot in us that the world has not even seen half of yet. And I'm excited for the world to see that and to see our colors and to see our passions and to see our strength and realize that we are not what they think we are. Mm-hmm. We are better than that.
Absolutely. We are not our stereotypes.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So what advice would you give to Muslim girls listening to this, to young Muslim girls, maybe Muslim girls in high school, maybe girls that wear the hijab specifically? What do you say to them?
I want to say you're not alone. Don't think you are. You're going to have a lot of challenges in life. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to come at you. It's not for everyone, but those rare few who are bright and bold, you're going to face some challenges. And when you do, as much as you think that you're not going to get past it and you think that there's nothing more past this, there is. There's a lot more. And the world will give it to you. It will hand it to you. It's not going to give it to you easy. So accept the challenge. Embrace it. Embrace yourself. And believe me, the world will need you and will thank you for what you've done.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
I'm trying to think, what would I tell my younger self?
What would you tell, what would you tell, 16-year-old you? That's what I was thinking as well. And you're right. I think you're right in everything that you said. And I think, you proved that to yourself. And I'm really happy to have heard your story. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. I know it couldn't have been
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And I really wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. And, again, believe in your story and in your message because it's working and it's reaching people. And just know that you're not alone. For every person that gives you hate, there is 10 people that want to give you love. And I truly believe that. Yeah. Well, thank you, Noor.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening in, everyone. Again, my name is Noor Hewaidi, and I invite you to sit with me in future episodes of Muslimah Demystified. Salam.